President Abdel El-Sisi reaffirms Egypt's commitment to strengthening ceasefire in Lebanon and fully enforcing UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Egypt affirms support for Somalia's sovereignty, unity, stability and security, highlighting strengthening bilateral ties. And the European Union has announced €1 billion to Egypt to support its reform agenda. You're watching the latest updates from Egypt on Qnews. Let's move to the latest developments. President Abdel El-Sisi has emphasized Egypt's commitment to strengthening the implementation of the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon and fully enforcing United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701. During a meeting with Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati, President El-Sisi underscored the importance of supporting the Lebanese armed forces to enable them to fulfill their duties in reinforcing stability in Lebanon, thereby enhancing regional stability. President Abdel El-Sisi has met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas during the Developing Aid Summit in Egypt. They discussed efforts to restore calm in Palestine, with a focus on Egypt's push for a ceasefire in Gaza and the delivery of humanitarian aid to prevent further crisis. Both leaders condemned Israeli violations in the West Bank and affirmed their support for a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Abbas praised Egypt's historic role in supporting Palestinian rights and opposing efforts to displace Palestinians. President Abdel El-Sisi and the head of the interim government of Bangladesh, Mohammed Yunus, have discussed the historical relations between the two countries. The meeting reviewed regional developments, particularly in Gaza, Lebanon and Syria, as well as Egypt's efforts to restore security, stability and preserve the capabilities of the people. President Abdel El-Sisi has met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the Developing Aid Summit in Egypt. They emphasized strengthening bilateral cooperation, particularly in the fields of economics, trade and investment. The discussions covered regional crises with a focus on Egypt's efforts for a Gaza ceasefire, humanitarian aid and Palestinian statehood. They also addressed Syria's unity and political transition and stressed the importance of protecting the sovereignty of Libya, Sudan and Somalia. Both leaders condemned Israeli violations in Syria, urging their immediate cessation. For further analysis on Egypt's effort for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, we're joined from Cairo by journalist Islam Afifi. Good evening to you and welcome to Qnews. And how significant are Egypt's diplomatic efforts at the D8 summit in advancing the cause of a ceasefire in Gaza?
In fact, the Egyptian leadership is exerting all effort to reach calm and ceasefire in order to allow the access of humanitarian aid and to provide the enough quantities for the needs of the Gaza Strip that is now under siege from Israel. And as Israel is hindering the work of UNRWA, there has been a great campaign by Israel against UNRWA to question its reputation and its neutrality in providing the humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip and distributing it to the people of the Strip. Egypt is active in all international fora be it in Cairo or elsewhere in the world, Egypt has been exerting all effort to raise this matter and to present the Palestinian cause with the Egyptian narrative that is approved by many capitals in the world, the idea of allowing access of humanitarian aid after the Gaza Strip has been under great siege for a long time, to the extent that Human Rights Watch said that there is a genocide in Gaza Strip, preventing the water, and Human Rights Watch spoke about the genocide and the bombardment, as there had been 44 martyrs killed in Gaza Strip yesterday because of the attacks by Israel. There is no place safe in Gaza Strip, but the Egyptian efforts continue in all international fora and working with all international and regional partners, which will lead to a success in the Egyptian mediation. Egypt is a very trusted mediator by all parties. Egypt is highly appreciated and highly respected because of the value of the Egyptian leadership and the Egyptian effort, and this will lead to a cooling in the nearby future. Many reports, local and international, are speaking about this recently, and the agreement is imminent, and it might be reached very soon, maybe reach it by the end of this year, by the end of December this year. And according to certain articles and provisions that are now being discussed with Egyptian, American, and Qatari mediation to bridge the gap between the different parties.
Right. With regard to the developments in the Middle East, what are the potential long-term impacts of President Sisi's meetings on the Middle East stability at the D8 summit?
In fact, Egypt is seeking partnership. Egypt is seeking cooperation. Egypt is seeking a path for cooperation, peace, and cooling with all the countries of the region and all global states. Egypt is working to bridge the bridges of cooperation with the leadership of Egypt. And I believe that these meetings and these gatherings that aim for building such partnerships will be fruitful, and the people of the region that are waiting for the leaders of the world to work together for fostering such partnership for a better life for their people, for these people and for these countries. So what has been presented by President Sisi is an advocacy for providing a way for financing the projects in these countries in order to foster the cooperation and partnerships between the different countries. Such fora and gatherings like this one, this G8 or BRICS or whatever, all these gatherings are the venue where Egypt is working for opening more gates for cooperation with all powers of the world and all states of the world, with a policy that is open to all international parties.
Now, how does Egypt's provision of humanitarian aid to Gaza reflect its broader strategic goals in the region? And how does this support shape its relations with key regional and international actors?
In fact, despite the enormous economic challenges that Egypt is facing, but Egypt has played a very vital role in providing aid to the people of Gaza. Throughout the last 14 months, Egypt has dedicated the Arish airport to receive the foreign aid, but Egypt has presented some 2/3 of all the aid that went to the Gaza Strip. 2/3 came from Egypt, and the figures prove this. And Egypt has been keen that the Rafah crossing remain open for the provision of aid. But the Israeli insistence on controlling the Rafah crossing from the Palestinian side, this has been rejected by Egypt because Israel wanted to stipulate some status quo. and Israel wanted to enforce that kind of status quo. But yes, Egypt has been an obstacle against the Israeli attempts to control the Gaza Strip. And Egypt insisted that the Palestinian side should be on the other side of the crossing, of the Rafah crossing, according to the crossings agreement in 2005, which was where the EU was a partner of it. And now there is also talk about a ceasefire and to hand over this crossing to the Palestinian side with a presence from the EU to allow the access of aid. Egypt has been keen for a ceasefire to allow the entry of the aid to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, who are in dire need of these basic elements and medical equipment and all of these kind of needs that they have, because the Gaza Strip has been converted into something very tragic because of the genocide committed by Israel. This situation is hurting the conscience of the people of the world because the world has been witnessing how Israel dealt with the Gaza Strip over the last month by bombardment and prevention of humanitarian aid and defaming the UNRWA.
Right. That was journalist Islam Afifi from Cairo. Many thanks for your insights. And back to our bulletin. Egypt has announced that it resumed direct flights between Cairo and Beirut as of Thursday, citing the stabilization of conditions in the brotherly state of Lebanon. Egypt resumed its flights after a 3-month suspension. In September, international and regional airlines, including Egypt Air, suspended flights to Lebanon as Israel intensified its military operations in the country. Assistant Foreign Minister Ambassador Ashraf Swailem emphasized Egypt's full support for Somalia's sovereignty, unity, stability and security, highlighting the growing bilateral relations between the two countries. In his speech at the African Union Peace and Security Council's ministerial meeting on Somalia, Ambassador Swailem noted that Somalia is going through a pivotal phase in its history, with the Somali government striving to take over ownership of efforts for reconstruction and peace building. He emphasized the importance of approaching the transition from the ATMIS mission to the new African Union mission with this perspective in mind. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has attended signing ceremonies of 3 cooperation protocols between the governorates of Cairo, Giza, Qalyubiyya and the National Press Authority. Following the signing, the Prime Minister confirmed that the state is always keen to provide full support to media bodies, the National Press Authority and its national press institutions in order to perform their roles and missions, while striving to remove any obstacles hindering efforts to develop these national press institutions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced that the European Union will provide €1 billion to Egypt to support its reform agenda. In a post on the X platform, Leyen noted that the funds aim to strengthen Egypt's business environment, attract private investment and create more job opportunities for its citizens. This initiative follows the strategic and comprehensive partnership signed in June 2024 in Cairo. Von der Leyen emphasized the EU's commitment to fostering economic growth and stability in Egypt through this partnership. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has emphasized the importance of increasing production and exports, highlighting that the industrial sector is currently a top priority. He stated that enhancing both production and export is a key focus on the government's agenda. In a meeting discussing opportunities for expanding industrial areas, the Prime Minister confirmed that the General Authority for Industrial Development is the sole entity directly engaged with investors to streamline and accelerate procedures regardless of the supervising authority. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. President El-Sisi reaffirms Egypt's commitment to strengthening ceasefire in Lebanon and fully enforcing UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Egypt affirms support for Somalia's sovereignty, unity, stability and security, highlighting strengthening bilateral ties. And the European Union has announced €1 billion to Egypt to support its reforms agenda. That's all for now. Remember to stay updated by following Qnews for the latest developments. Many thanks for watching.